I'm so glad here to be here with Baron Davis, Superintendent of Richland School District in South Carolina. Baron, hello. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Good to see
Good, good. Thanks for
you.
having me.
Hey, great. Love to sit here with you today and chat a little bit about equity in your district. But would love to start by hearing about Richland School District. So tell us about your students, where you're located.
Yeah. So Richland 2 is located in Columbia, South Carolina. We're actually in the northeast section of the city or the county. We are a majority, our school district is, I guess, what you would consider a bedroom community. So mostly suburban, with a little touch of rural and a little touch of urban. We have about 28,600 students. I have roughly about 3,700 employees in the district. The majority of our student population is African American. About 60% of our students are African American. Our free and reduced lunch rate is about 54%. We have 41 school sites or facilities spread out across the district. And our main focus when you look at our vision is to strive to be premier. And so all of our efforts and energies is focusing on being premier, which is really about being the best version of Richland School District 2. That's how we set our standard for being premier is, are we achieving being a school district that's working towards self-actualization, which is the best version of our district.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the spring. You were in this unprecedented challenge with COVID-19. And in particular, with this session, we're talking about how you were able to look at your non-teaching staff and ways in which they can support your students and families. And so I wanted to maybe you can paint a picture of the spring and how you were thinking about supports for your students and families.
Well, we knew immediately, as all superintendents, I think, around the country realized that the pandemic and COVID-19 in particular was going to really exacerbate and really pull back the covers on the inequities that exist in our K through 12 spaces. Mm-hmm. What we wanted to try to do was minimize those inequities as much as we could. And so there were certain services that needed to be that we needed to deploy to our students. One, of course, being addressing the issue of food security. The other was addressing the issues of technology and lack of access to technology. But the third was also the social emotional support that our students and teachers are going to need. Our non-teaching staff played a central role in that because they were able to assist us in delivering those resources out to our community in a very informal way, which gave us the idea to then restructure that to make it a very formal and informal way of doing it, and with more intention. And so what we've been able to do at the start of this year was over the spring and the summer was to develop a plan of what we call inverting the system of support. And essentially we took all of those support systems that are traditionally in the building out into the community. Identify various community partners that will allow us to set up in locations, so parks, rec centers, community centers where you have it. Got buses and tents and things like that, and we assign staff to go out to provide those services. They're knocking on doors, checking on students, and it's been phenomenal. Just in the first week, we've been able to address a lot of issues or a lot of issues were brought to our attention that had we not gone out into the community, we may not have never known that those issues existed.
Mm. Wow, that's interesting, Baron. Talk about the because I know you are just embedded in the community in how you look at your school district. It's kind of a comprehensive approach. So what kind of partners are you working with? Give us some examples.
So some examples are, like right now we're working with with some of our local faith-based partners. They're providing, assisting us with locations for parents to drop off students for childcare. In one part of our school district is done free of charge. So our parents who have to go to work, they're able to bring their sons and daughters to the child care facility. They're serving a specific zip code in our community, but nonetheless, it has been a benefit for those parents. We also partner with the Boys and Girls Club, who's providing services for our teachers who have elementary age children, middle school age children, and they're also providing child care services for those students. We have additional parent volunteers who are helping us with distributing some of the resources that I was just sharing with. So partnering with our local schools and SICs to ensure that our students are getting the necessary resources they need. And then also working on some partnerships right now with tutoring services for our students as they are working from home, making sure they have what they need to be successful academically as well. So those are just kind of a few examples of the partnerships we have. We also have a partnership with the University of South Carolina as we're working. I've actually got a conversation coming up here shortly about continuing to provide culturally relevant pedagogical strategies for our teachers as we do this remotely. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about that as well.
That's great. Can you tell me, as you have redeployed, so to speak, some of your non-teaching staff, how have you looked at skill development, developing their talents in other areas to provide supports?
We have that's a great question, because we have a real formal structure. It's called APEC. And APEC stands for Alternative Pathways for Educator Certification. And what we've done over the last couple of years is that we've opened it up to our non-certified teaching ranks and helped them with a partnership with Columbia College, a local college here in Columbia, to get them certified as classroom teachers. It's been very successful the last couple of years. We've had 12 the first inaugural year and 13 last year. So now we've added 25 homegrown developed teachers from our non-teaching certified ranks to now be certified classroom teachers in our school district. And so we've intentionally tried to develop them, not just from their skill set as a clerical assistant or whatever you have it, but one, getting them a college degree, and two, that degree in education, primarily in elementary and special education.
Wow, that's a fairly unique offering, I would imagine. So I just hearing that someone could advance in that context is great. Other ways in which you think about, because right now you're 100% virtual, so right. Your bus drivers are not driving buses for the most part, and your staff that take care of buildings are otherwise deployed. Talk a little bit about how folks, I mean, you've got the deployment of technology, you're supporting, kind of learning at a distance. Are your non-teaching staff involved in kind of the technology support piece as well?
Yeah, so we have contractor services for our custodial needs, as well as our food services, so contracted services. So okay. Those individuals, we work with their employers because we pay a contract. We work with their employers to keep those individuals, first of all, employed through this pandemic. So figuring out creative and innovative ways to make sure that they have things to do to keep them employed, because we didn't want to contribute to that. With our staff that we do have, for example, our bus drivers, they're deploying our meals to our students. Okay. So since we're 100% virtual, they have daily routes that they're running meals out to our students. They're also transporting some of our staff that are going out to the community efforts that we're doing a couple days a week. So they're transporting staff out on the buses, and that way. We have a security force that we have to make sure that's monitoring our facilities, because they sit empty. We want to make sure that those things are still being monitored and taken care of. So we have tried to come up with creative ways to do this. So we may even have individuals help deliver the meals. So they got the bus drivers driving, but you also have staff on the bus to get out to help deliver the meals, to take the counts and things of that nature. So we are fortunate now that the USDA is going to extend the waiver, so we don't have to worry about trying to figure out who's free or reduced or full pay now. We can just give the lunches and deploy the lunches. They're also helping to prepare those lunches as well. So we're trying to come up with creative ways to keep them engaged and connected with the students. Many of them are going out and, like I said, participating and helping us engage the community in those community efforts. So whether it's playing games or exercising with the students, delivering the packages, whatever, knocking on doors, just checking on students that we haven't heard from in 2 days. They have going to have a list of those names just to check in and do, what we call, checkups, Richland 2 checkups.
Great, that's great. Can you talk a little bit about your budget and budget implications as you were coming into school year 2021? I'm curious about, as you redeploy people in different capacities, as you have community partnerships and other expenses to support this kind of community outreach piece. Just want to see if there's anything that you've taken away from that piece as well.
Well, in South Carolina right now, and I don't know in other states, but we're working on a continuing resolution right now from our last year's budget. We haven't gotten a new budget for this fiscal year. We're anticipating getting that information here in the state very shortly. There's a possibility there may be some budget cuts that may be coming from the state, but there's also a possibility that we may be on an additional continuing resolution where they will not have a new budget. What we've been trying to do is figure out cost savings across the district that we can put in place to ensure that we can keep our employees employed, so that we don't have to have an impact on them financially. Mm-hmm. And so there are some areas of savings that I think all school districts will probably see. The question will be how much of that offsets any additional budget cuts, a potential budget cut. One example of a place that is probably a tremendous amount of savings for most school districts is substitutes. Mm. When you're in a virtual format, you don't need nearly as many substitutes as you would have needed in a face-to-face setting. And so we have to be mindful of that and kind of squirrel that away a little bit. Keep that in mind as we're looking at offsetting some of our costs, because some of it is naturally built in. But there are other expenses. And so we have, of course, the CARES money that has come through that allow us to do some certain things, but that's one-time money. And so we have some additional occurring needs, technology, as we're trying to grow out our infrastructure and make sure that all our kids are connected and everybody has a device, repairing of those devices. We have to make sure that we're doing those things as well, our expenses for our travel, for our buses, and I guess a myriad of other things that we have to put in place. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out. But we're being very cautious and in preparation for that. Great.
Before we wrap up here, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight one of your initiatives, one of your many initiatives around equity, your Premier 100 work with teachers of color. So I just wanted to give you a chance to chat a little bit about that, because I think it's a really bold initiative that you have there, and would love for you to share a little bit about how you're navigating that, well, what it is, and then how you're navigating through COVID.
Well, the Premier, we call it the Premier 100, and it's our male teachers of color shaping the future. And we wanted to, when we did our numbers in our district and we looked at the number of men of color, specifically the African-American men in our school district that were in our classrooms, roughly 6% of our classrooms were being taught by men of color. And I know that was a little bit above the national average, but we wanted to continue to grow that number because the number of minority students in our school district continues to grow. We put together, launched an effort in partnership with several of our local HBCUs and our for Get on the Bus tours with the Call Me Mr. programs here in South Carolina that focus specifically on developing men of color for the elementary school age students. And the goal was to recruit 100 men of color over the next 4 years. And so the goal, of course, was then 25 men in each year. And I included all men of color. So that's whether they're Asian or African-American, specific island, Hispanic, it didn't matter. If they were identified as a male of color, I wanted to include them in this number. We had a conference that went off that was supposed to have been scheduled for in March of last year. We were unable to do. COVID kind of hit us in the middle of it, but we were able to do our kickoff and our launch. And that was really successful. From that effort, even with the COVID and the challenges of COVID, we were able to recruit 22. So we were just shy of 25 by 3 So we're very pleased by that, considering we really had to stop our efforts in the month of March. So it's going great. 2020. I'm very pleased with 22.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if we meet any goals this year, I mean, that's incredible.
And hats off to my HR chief and my HR team for taking this initiative and really getting super innovative and creative, and really digging in and getting those gentlemen into our schools and finding out all kind of ways. We likened it to recruiting, like any other Fortune 500 company does when we talk about recruiting talent. So we specifically identified the talent that we needed, and we went out and recruited that talent. So the next phase is to make sure that we have a support system in place to retain them. And as you know, Kim, I've shared oftentimes my own experiences. I want them to be authentically themselves as men of color in the classroom, because I don't think we can retain them if they can't be authentic to who they are as they're delivering, teaching our students. And so I think everyone benefits from that experience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing what's happening in Richland School District 2. We actually will do another equity chat to go deeper into your work around teachers of color. Just glad to have you here today, and just wishing you all the best as you're navigating this unprecedented school year. So thanks, Baron, for being here and for being part of the league. Honestly, that's been, you're a powerful leader in the league, and I appreciate that as well.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving us this platform too. It's much needed and much appreciated.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.